Hello and welcome to GearHeads. My name's Jesse and today I'm going to show you guys one of the most useful tools I have in my toolbox. So we've all been there before. You're working on a project, trying to get it done in a timely manner. It's something that should only take 20-30 minutes, right? And then before you know it, something goes wrong, a fastener rounds off. It could be a bolt, it could be a nut, it could be rusty, it could be because somebody wasn't using the right tool on it. Maybe the guy that worked on it before you rounded it off, and so now you go to remove it, and of course it's super tight, round it off, and you just can't get that thing out of there. Now, obviously there's some situations you might be able to use vice grips or something like that to get it off, but that's not always an option. Sometimes you can't fit them in there. Sometimes even still, using the vice grips, squeezing down, it's not enough, and those just round it off even more. And in those kinds of situations, this is the tool that I have had save me so many times. Now this is a Blue Point set. I'll put the part number down in the description, and I'll also leave a couple links, maybe links to other similar products that are a little bit more affordable, and I'll get to why I bought this set later, but for now I'll show you. It goes from 3/8 up to 19 millimeters, so it'll cover metric and SAE sizes. It kind of just does a small step up each bit of the way, and it will fit whatever you're going for. It's not like you got to worry about ruining the head of this thing. You just hammer these on and you take them off. Now some people call these screw or bolt extractors. That's not really what they are. This is a twist socket set. So they are different in bolt extractors in that usually with a bolt extractor or screw extractor, you'll drill into the bolt or the broken stud or something like that, and then once you've got a hole drilled, you tap the extractor in with a hammer and then you pull it out that way. Those can work sometimes, and it obviously always depends on the situation that you're facing, but for a lot of things I found these were a lot faster and work a lot better. Let me go ahead and show you. I have an example. I've got a 19 millimeter head bolt that I've kind of rounded off. I ground it down with a grinder, and I had a rusty one I wanted to show you guys, but the bolt actually broke. So go figure. You know, when you're working, you see these things happen, and now when I want to give an example to show you guys, it's actually a lot harder to round something off than you think it is. When you're trying to do it on purpose, that is. Okay, so this is the 14 millimeter twist socket. Now you can see it's got these sharp edges going in there, and if you look inside, you can kind of see down the barrel, it twists all the way around. It's a little hard to see with the lighting maybe. I got a flashlight shining over, but this thing's dark black, you know, so you can kind of see it twist down like that. So the way this works is, let's say I had a 14 millimeter bolt head that got rounded off because it was rusty or somebody used the wrong tool or something like that. You take this and you put it on the bolt head. You just hammer that baby on there. You don't even have to hammer it that hard, just hammer it on lightly. The teeth on this will dig in and pull that thing out. And I mean, I'm not gonna promise it works every single time, but for me, it has saved me in multiple dire situations that I did not think it would actually work in. So these have continued to impress me. So let me give you guys a demonstration and show you an example. All right, so this used to be a 19 millimeter head here. I kind of ground it down. I abused it with a cheap socket that I wasn't concerned about. There was a 12 point. I hit that on with a gun. This thing's really tight on there now, and this used to be a 19 millimeter. So let's just try and see what happens if I go to tighten it more. Yeah, it's coming off. All right, let's loosen though. That's the test, right? See if it'll loosen without popping off. Oh, no. No, this thing's pretty sufficiently rounded so that a 19 millimeter, see, it lifts itself up and off. So this thing is sufficiently rounded that a 19 millimeter will no longer work. A 3/4 won't work, and you can't really get an 18 on there because it's too big for that still. Now, just imagine you're working on a car. You find yourself in this kind of situation, and there's not a lot of room to get to it, but you do at least have a straight shot at it, and that is where these come in handy. So this one is the 19 millimeter or 3/4 size. Either one, they're both pretty much the same size. So what you're gonna do is set it on there, and I'll show you without using a hammer, because I've had to work and use these, especially some of the smaller ones, in really tight spots where I could not get a hammer in there or anything like that. And I had to use even on one a 1/4 ratchet to tap it in place. So I'm just gonna use this little, cheap Pittsburgh ratchet and tap it on. And I just showed you that was not even hitting that hard. And I just showed you I could not take it off anymore with the 19 millimeter. Now watch with this one. Just from tapping it on that much, it's going to come off. Watch. There we go. That broke it loose. And now the bolt's coming out. There it is, and that's how these things work and how you use them. Now, as far as getting these out, I've found they're actually not usually too bad to pull out if you just twist the opposite way and pull with some pliers or something like that. You can throw it on the ground if you want to, hope it rattles out loose, or you can always, you know, just hold this in the vise, run a little punch down there, and you can hit it out with a hammer. And in fact, I think I'll just do that right now real quick. Look at that. First tap, came right out. All right, so look at the head of this bolt. After this thing came out, you can actually see the teeth marks from where it grabs it. See that mark right there? And then there should be another one right around here. There's one, there's one. Those are the marks left in, and the beautiful thing about these extractors is when you hammer them on and then you go to remove it, they only dig in deeper. You know, it's not like they're gonna slip, and if they do slip, sometimes I found on old rusty stuff, it's because the head is so rusted away. You know, and if that happens, you can hammer it on again and try. If you need to, you can step the size down a little bit, just down to the next size, if you've removed so much of that bolt head that it's not working anymore. And you know, there might even be cases where it's not going to work out for you. And I know that this was a, you know, this was a simple demonstration where all I did was ground it down, but it will show you at least, you know, how it works. So let me tell you guys a couple more things about this, and maybe a couple stories real quick about times these have saved my butt. All right, well, you guys kind of got to see an example of how to use them, how well they work. You know, obviously in that situation, I probably could have used something like vice grips or whatever, but, you know, like I said, there's a lot of times you might not be able to get vice grips in there, and even if you do, they still might not work, and there has been so many times these things have worked when I did not expect them to. So I bought this set because I didn't even really know about these things, and I'm surprised I hadn't heard about them. I've used, you know, extractors before where you drill in, you hammer, you know, you hammer the extractor in after you got your hole drilled and take them out that way, and sometimes the extractors break, or, you know, if you don't get that hole drilled perfect, you might cause other problems, and so that's a risk you might take. If it's in a tight spot, it can be really difficult to do that. And this is the first item I ever bought off the Snap-on truck. I was always really leery of buying things on the Snap-on truck because, and even any other tool truck, because I, you know, try to be reasonable with my tool purchases and I don't want to spend too much money. Now, going on a tool truck obviously is going to be a real quick way to spend way too much money on tools. There's certain things I will buy that, you know, they're not actually outrageous and it's worth paying the extra money for it because I am a professional. I use them all the time. Or I use, you know, just different tools, maybe not these, because I don't use these every day. They have been worth it to me and saved me when I did need them. So the other great thing about buying this Blue Point set, at least for me, I have a good Snap-on guy that comes here and he'll warranty these things out for me. If I use them a few times and they get less sharp, he has no problem just taking them and giving me a brand new one. He's even told me if I use it 3 or 4 times and it's starting to be not as sharp, just give him a call. He'll get me the next one the next time he sees me. He'll get me that size and I'll warranty it out, no cost to me, and we're good to go. So that's really nice and really cool, and it's something to consider if you work professionally. Now, if you're a home DIY guy, I can understand not wanting to spend as much as on this set. So on the computer here, I've got it pulled up and the item number is 213TFSYA. Now, it's retailing on here for 358 bucks. That's a lot of money. I did not spend that much on this set, not even close to that much on this set. But, you know, it might vary for you. If you don't have a tool truck that comes around, you know, close to you, you might not be able to try and get a better deal. So I was able to, and I'm really happy with it. Like I said earlier, it goes from 3/8 up to 19 millimeter. There is other sized options out there. You can get, they have smaller sets that start at around 10 millimeter and go all the way down to 3 or 4 millimeter. And those ones can be really useful for if you break off a stud, or you might not round off the head of the bolt, but you go to take the bolt off and the head breaks off the bolt and you need to still get the rest of it out. And I've had a couple situations where I was working on something that somebody else had already done that on. I think they went to tighten something down, then they broke the head off and they didn't want to do the work to pull it apart again and get that out. So you can get the smaller ones, and if it'll fit, you know, you just got to find the right sized one and get it to fit on that stud. You can tap it on, pull it off the same way I pulled that bolt out. And I do actually have a Matco one here too. It was an 8 millimeter Like I said, this set starts at 3/8, and I do see obviously a lot of 8mm stuff on a lot of cars, so I figured it would be good at least to buy that single one, since I didn't really want to spend the money on a whole smaller set yet, even though I might consider it someday. So let me tell you 2 quick stories real fast before you go, at least of anecdotal evidence for why I got this set and how well it's worked for me. The day I bought this set, I was working on a Fiat Chrysler product, pulling off an exhaust manifold. The head had to come off. The customer severely overheated this engine, and I don't know if that is what caused this. Who really knows? But I went to pull the bolts out of the exhaust manifold. The first 2 actually came out, and they didn't come out too hard. They were super tight, but I was able to bust them loose and get them out. The next one, I was taking it out and I was fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. I had to use a super long ratchet on that thing to get it out, and when I got it out, I found out it had pulled all the aluminum from the head and the threads out with the bolt. So now that had to be rethreaded. But I still got that one out. There was still like 4 or 5 more bolts to go, and that was what was ahead of me. And I think I got another one out similar to that. It also pulled the aluminum out with it. But then I had 3 more that I could not get out, and I was working on this thing for a long time. I don't know how long it was, but I was using good sockets too. I wasn't using cheap crappy sockets, but just for how much pressure I was having to put on these and the kind of little bit weird angles I was having to use to get at it, I ended up rounding off all 3 of those, and I was like hopeless. I was like, well, you know, at this point, and in this car, the way it was set up, I could not get the head out without taking the manifold off. So I was starting to consider, wow, I might have to just sawzall this exhaust manifold off of here, and we'll have to buy the customer a new one. And I didn't want to have to do that. That would suck for me and for the shop. And Snap-on guy walks through the door and asks how I'm doing, and asks if I need anything, and I was like, maybe. Do you have anything that can help me with this? And he said he had just the thing. So he went and he grabbed me one of these. I told him what size I needed, and I told him, if this works, I'll buy the whole set from you. And it was a 13mm. I tapped that thing on there. I put my long ratchet on it, and I expected it just to slip off and not grab on and not work, or to break the head of the bolt or something. It actually busted loose, and it came right out. I still had to fight it. The threads were jacked up on that one also, and it still didn't come out easy, but it did come out, and so did the next 3. And from that point, I was sold. I was like, I'm buying this set because I can already see, even if I'm not using it every day, it's really gonna save me when I do need it. The other time I fell in love with this set, I hadn't used it in a few weeks, and it's funny, when you buy a new tool, if you don't use it all the time, sometimes you almost forget that you have it. So I was working on a Ford 6-liter truck, diesel, and I was having to get to, on this specific one, it was the only year they had the turbo bracket put a certain way that there's one bolt, and it's a 10mm head on it, and it's on the back side of the turbo, down kind of low, and you literally, if you've got to lay over the top of the motor, and you can just barely get your hands in and your wrists down to just kind of barely get to it. You can barely touch it. You can't get a saw in there, so you can't cut it off. You can't get a grinder in there without cutting a bunch of other crap up, and you don't want to do that. And I was trying real hard. This thing was rusted in place real bad, and I had a 10mm on it with a small ratchet, and I just couldn't get it. I wasn't strong enough, and there was no room, so I couldn't get any leverage. So then what I did was I was holding it in place while I had a jack handle being run out to the side of the truck over the fender, where one of my coworkers was out there pushing on that and hitting it with a hammer while I kept it lined up to try and bust that thing loose. Surprise, surprise, it was rusted. It ended up, rounding off the head on that thing too. And man, I'd been fighting with this thing for a while. I, for a minute, forgot that I even had these things, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm literally just gonna have to take the cab off this truck just for this one bolt so that I can get access to it. You know, that's not what you want to be doing when you're trying to get a simple job done. I was just trying to put a turbo on this thing. Shouldn't take more than a couple hours to put a new turbo, and I'd already been working on it for over 2 hours because of this, there's a couple other rusted things too, but that was the big one that I'd been fighting with. So what did I do? I got my 10mm out. I went in there. I used a small ratchet. I think it actually was a 3/8 ratchet, but it was a stubby. It was only like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches long. And I just held this in place, and I used my other hand, and I just tapped. I couldn't get a lot of, you know, movement or leverage or whatever to hit it hard, but I just tapped and tapped and tapped it on. I put the 3/8 ratchet into this thing, held it in place and held it stiff. I ran that jack handle back out, and my coworker took a swing at it with the hammer, and instead of slipping this time, it actually broke loose and that thing came out. Just from that alone, it would have been worth the cost of buying this almost, just because of the fact that it saved me so much work, and it saved me work other times too. Those are just the two most notable stories for me. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Hope you enjoyed seeing these things, and you know, maybe you guys, they can help you out. There's other ones out there too that I'm sure are more affordable, but for me, it made sense to get this set. I'll throw links down in the description for these, and for other similar ones you guys can get on Amazon. I'm pretty sure Gear Wrench and a few other, you know, decent companies sell these as well, more than just, you know, knockoff stuff, because I know there's probably knockoff ones out there and they might, you know, they might work well too, but I always get a little nervous if I'm using super cheap tools, especially in situations like this where when you need it, if it works, it counts, and that's kind of another reason I was willing to spend a little more money on it. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you have any questions about this set, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Tell me what you think. If you have other tools that you'd like to recommend to people, share a link down there as well. And if it doesn't let you, I know YouTube sometimes spam filters people leaving links, but you can still leave a comment saying the name of the tool and stuff like that. So leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and that little bell, and I've got more tool reviews coming your way. If there's anything specifically you want to see, leave a comment for that too, and if I can, I will do my best to do that for you. Hope you guys had a good one, and as always, keep wrenching.